Hi doll faces, I'm going to talk a little bit about Imbolc because that time is upon us again, and I suppose I've done contemplation videos so far for Yule and for Samhain, so seems kind of rude not to carry on in that vein, I suppose. Um, Imbolc, I call it by a few different names, but I really like calling it the Festival of Awakening, which is something that I actually read in like a Glennie Kindred diary a long time ago. I picked up a book in a little witchcraft pagan type shop in Penzance in Cornwall, which anyone from the UK will know is kind of like a little hub for pagans and witches. There are so many cool shops down there. So many awesome places. There's like a museum of witchcraft in Boscastle, which is awesome. And I am a friend of the Museum of Witchcraft, which is cool. So I kind of actually contribute to its existence, which is nice. And I've been there quite a few times. And there's just, oh my god, the shopping in Cornwall. It literally from right up in Glastonbury to when you get into Cornwall to right to the bottom in Land's End. I am definitely spending all of my rent, unfortunately, in any kind of like new age shop that I come across. But I found this book and I was flicking through it, and Glennie Kindred described Imbolc as the Festival of Awakening. And I really liked that. I thought that was great. So I kind of have borrowed that a little bit. And I think the reason that I love the word awakening for Imbolc is that I kind of think of it as the meeting of the realms in a sense. And I know we talk about the inner realm and the outer realm, but that there are a lot of us who believe that there are like countless other realms as well. But I think that the metaphor of the inner and outer realms with the Wheel of the Year is great because you have kind of like Samhain and Solstice are kind of considered to be the two main festivals which pertain to going in, doing inner work, looking inwardly, and considering kind of the other realm, the darker realm, and dark energy, dark matter, the things we can't see, lifting the veils, communicating with stuff that we're not really scientifically au fait with yet and whatnot. And then you have kind of like if you think of Beltane, for example, is a very sort of physical realm festival. It's very much about the earth and the five senses and sensuality and life and fertility and abundance and stuff kind of in this realm. So I think that's why we use the terms inner and outer realm, and I've always favoured that idea. And I think Imbolc is that time where all of the ramifications of the deep spiritual inner work that we've done for Samhain and for Solstice is still very much there. It's, we're still deeply absorbed in it. It's still penetrating our psyches. But Imbolc is that time where we accept that spring is coming and that the things that we've learned during our deep spiritual contemplations, particularly during Samhain, are now going to make themselves known in the outer realm, in the physical realm. So, we're actually going to be seeing the fruits of our inner labour, if you like. So I like to see it as a meeting of the realms, and I think that gives us a great opportunity for intuition and inspiration. They're kind of like the two main themes for me with Imbolc. I don't know about anyone else, but I always feel that the spark of inspiration is very strong during this festival. I think it's a very inspiring time, and I think that the seeds of new creative endeavours can really be sown at this kind of time. And intuition, I feel, is very strong during Imbolc. I think there's a lot of kind of sub themes to do with intuition that go on and kind of examining your gut instincts and your primal sense of what's going to happen next and what's around the corner. And also for a lot of people who think of Samhain as a time to get in touch with the ancestors and that kind of thing and listen to the voices that don't speak strongly in the material realm but still have a great deal of importance in other ways. I think that again is, it's such a powerful meeting during Imbolc between inner and outer. We're coming into this idea that seeds are being sown, and we're going to go on into summer and see them, but we've still got this lingering sense of the mystic, the esoteric, the unknown, the dark energies, and the underworld and stuff like that. So it's kind of like a rising, I suppose you could say, and I think inspiration is fed by that kind of idea and that kind of feeling. I think it's a great repository for the energy of inspiration to take hold, and we can really harness it and do something with it. So yeah, inspiration and intuition, I would say, are two really big themes for me during Imbolc. And of course, it's the festival of the coming of spring, and it's all about that kind of fresh start, I suppose you could say, which is weird because in my life a few things have kind of coincided strangely, which have kind of shown themselves to be part of that Imbolc energy I was talking about, but I didn't really realise it at the time. Like, for example, really spontaneously and out of completely nowhere last week, I changed my name. I legally changed my name. I didn't change my first name, I'm still Kellyanne, don't panic. But I changed my surname. And it just kind of, it was very spontaneous. I didn't really give a massive amount of thought to it. I just did it. I've had issues on and off with my surname, and I've used another name for a long time anyway, that was a legal change as well, but I didn't really make it official in terms of changing my passport and my bank details and such. But this time it's it's a really strongly, firmly felt idea that I'm going to change my name and I'm going to get it all done. It's all going to be sort of official and above board. And now looking back on that decision and looking back with the spontaneity that I kind of used to propel me into that decision and to propel me into taking action, that's a very Imbolc thing to do. That's the kind of seed that I kind of think of as being sown during Imbolc. It's that sense of action and that sense of the new, I think. So it was really weird that that came up. And also with my spirituality, there's been a definite shift. It's not been anything that's been completely mad, like I haven't gone from completely one end of the spectrum to the other. It's not really so much that, it's the fact that I've become much more certain in what I'm doing, and I've kind of embraced, like I said in the My Kind of Magic video that I did, I've embraced a lot of things about my spiritual journey and about my spiritual convictions that before I was very much kind of using for a while and then shrugging off, feeling comfortable with and then feeling very uncomfortable with. So it's kind of come to a time for me, which is wonderfully coincided with Imbolc, the Festival of Awakening, that I need to take my spirituality by the balls and I need to own it. And I want to do that this year. And there's been a few creative projects that I've started which have had to do with that. I started the project that I talked about in the My Kind of Magic video, which I'm now calling my Book of Chaos, is just basically an outline of my spiritual manifesto, I suppose you could say, my agenda, everything that I do within the circle, everything that I believe to be true, all this kind of thing. So it's kind of a very creative project, and it's a project that's steeped in the very real manifestation in the outer world of what's inside my inner world. So I think that's coincided wonderfully and aligned itself wonderfully with Imbolc, because I'm really starting to propel myself forward with that project now. And I also a couple of weeks ago started a tarot journal for 2013, which I feel also is a project that I'm putting a lot of creativity into, which again speaks to that Imbolc spirit, that kind of like Imbolc energy. And the tarot journal is something that I will be sharing with all of you and showing you, so I'm really excited to be able to do that once I've got a little bit more of it done. But back to what I was saying about the spiritual shift, I think that obviously I've used creativity as a means of positing this spiritual shift into the outer world and manifesting it into something tangible that I can actually see. But I've also very much accepted it on an inner level, and I wrote in my Book of Mirrors at the beginning of the year that one of my New Year's resolutions with regard to spirituality was simplicity and circle work, because I think these are two things that were really missing for me in 2012. 2012, because I met my boyfriend in February of last year, and he really propelled me back onto the spiritual journey and made me realise that I needed to face up to a lot of things about my spirituality that I wasn't truly accepting or wasn't truly running with, and made me realise that not only was I entitled to run with it and that I deserved it, but also that I couldn't really be whole unless I really did face up to the sheer amount of power and importance that spirituality gives to me in my life, because I think I had put it on the back burner for a long time for different reasons, some of which I've addressed here and some of which I haven't. So 2012, when I was kind of like propelled back onto the spiritual journey, was a very chaotic time. I was all over the place. I was throwing myself back into loads of different subjects that I had been reading about a few years previously when I was, steeped in spirituality before kind of like the big slump. So yeah, I was throwing myself back into all of that, and I was really getting very, very infused, really kind of over enthusiastic, just taking on knowledge at a really alarming rate. My path itself and the practices within it were erratic, I suppose you could say. I'm not really sure that I had a core with regard to ritual practice, and I'm not sure that I had a core with regard to the stuff I was doing on a daily basis to kind of mark out and honour my spirituality. So it was all over the place, and it changed a lot, and it became very flowery and overcomplicated and unnecessary. There wasn't enough simplicity. So I noted down in my Book of Mirrors that I wanted to have kind of like a three-spoked wheel for the way my spiritual path would meet itself out in 2013. And on that three-spoked wheel, there are just these three important things that I want to be kind of like masts, I suppose you could say, to help me to grab onto my spirituality and keep things understandable and keep things going along at a steady pace. And those three things are meditation, study, and ritual. You know, I think those are going to be the big cornerstones of my spirituality in 2013 in terms of the path that I'm taking. And it's really strange because I feel that Imbolc does lend itself to a sense of simplicity. I think it lends itself to the idea of following your heart, just going with what's right, following your nose, you know, not worrying so much about long-term consequences or ramifications, or, you know, is this really exactly what I ought to be doing? I think it's more like you get the gift of spiritual simplicity. Everything seems to level itself down. It's about foundations because it's about a new beginning. So obviously, when we're thinking about building something which is going to take us through the rest of the year, we need to have that strong foundation. And I think Imbolc really gives me, at least, that chance to recognize what my strong foundation is. So I'm kind of clearing all the leaves and the debris away, and I'm really getting down to what matters, you know, what I can actually build on. And for me, meditation, study, and ritual are kind of like the three big posts in the sand, and I kind of want to go on with that. You know, I want to keep it simple, and I think with beginning the group meditation, another beginning around the time of Imbolc, you know, I think that these energies are not a mistake. I don't think they're a coincidence. I think they are divine synchronicity. And I really enjoy that. I enjoy looking back on the January that I've had so far and thinking, well, you know, the Imbolc energy was really at work in my life, and it always is. You know, I think that the Wheel of the Year says so much about how human consciousness has developed and what it's like now, the underlying energies that so many of us don't realise are propelling us and directing us. But actually, if you follow the 8-spoke Wheel of the Year, you can't help but realise that that is actually happening. So it's always really a delight to realise that. Another thing I wanted to say about Imbolc is we've had snow here in the UK, which I'm sure, like so many Americans, have already heard us either loving it or complaining about it or worrying about driving on perilously icy roads, or, you know, just the fact that it looks like a winter wonderland outside. And it is kind of coming to the stage now where the last of the ice is dropping away and we are seeing the grey pavements again. But for a few days back there, it was fluffy, thick snow. I mean, it was very exciting. It was like the white Christmas that we didn't have at Christmas. And I think snow can be very symbolic of changes taking place and shifts happening. I really feel that a lot of people are so fond of snow because they get that sense of the newness. They get that sense of everything before being swept away. We get to look at our environment through completely different eyes. It looks different. It's dressed up in this amazing guise of purity and the idea of a fresh beginning and everything being fresh and clean and sparkling and beautiful. So I think that's why it does give a lot of people a really nice feeling of positive energy. You know, and I think that when we talk about the electromagnetic waves, for example, that exist to kind of make us see colours, the understanding that the underlying colour of all things is white, you know, and then the electromagnetic waves that move at different times make our human consciousness perceive that as different colours. I like the idea that snow is white. White is considered to be, that's why we so often work with white light in the circle. White is considered to be kind of like the underlying colour, the colour of purity, the colour of unity, the colour that binds all different colours together under one common mother, I suppose you could say. So the fact that snow is white as well, I think, speaks to us from a kind of chromotherapeutic point of view. I suppose you could say that was a bit complex, but if anyone's still with me, congratulations. But yeah, along with the snow, I kind of came to think about fresh starts and that kind of feeling that the snow gives us that makes us propel towards the feeling of like fresh starts and everything appearing new and being able to look at everything from a different perspective. It gives you that energy of drive into a new direction, I suppose you could say. And that made me think about addictions to fresh starts, because I think a lot of people do have that. I think there's one or two people that everybody knows in their lives, one or two friends or family members that you know, that you speak to, that you are aware are addicted to the fresh start. You know, instead of actually dealing with their problems and feeling gratitude for the strong foundations that they have, they always feel like enlightenment is around the next corner, or job satisfaction is always at that next job that they're going to get. You know, they can never find it in the job they're in now, or they can never find, you know, relationship satisfaction in the relationship they're in now. It's always the next place. It's like they're always looking out towards that abstract point when everything's going to be perfect. And in another video, I'll talk a little bit about how enlightenment is actually now, and it's not kind of like over into that next trajectory, it's actually now. That whole idea of radical acceptance, I suppose you could say. But a lot of people do not know that. They don't think about that. They kind of always are looking at that point in the distance where everything's going to be perfection, and not actually dealing with what they have now, and not taking advantage of the resources they have now and the energy that they can harness right now in this moment to make things good and to feel that they have posited something great into their own life at this point, not in that further realm where everything looks like roses. I was thinking about that addiction to the fresh start, and I was thinking about how it's really important with Imbolc to not only accept the new and consider the fact that seeds are being sown for the future, and it's all very fresh, and it's all kind of, we're going out into that outer realm again. I think it's also very important to feel gratitude for the strong foundations that we do have, and the things that we don't want to change, and the things that are still with us after so long, the things that haven't let us down, the things that we still believe, the people that are still there. Those posts, as I was saying about my own spiritual journey, those posts that are there, that level us, that make us feel happy in our own skin, that make us feel like we have a sense of what our core identity is doing and why we need it as much as we do. So I think it's not just about embracing the new and embracing the fact that the outer realm is now once again coming alive and things are going to come to fruition in the tangible realm, which is fantastic. I think it's also about appreciating like that 200-year-old oak tree, you know, that's still there after all that time. It's not new, it's always been there, but it's been there for a long time. It's something that we can rely upon, and it's something that has within it an incredible sense of the energy that was around before we were and will be around a long time after we have perished. So I think that's something that for me is strong in Imbolc, you know, honouring your foundations, honouring the things that have been there with you for a long time, that have seen you through a lot. And I also think that Imbolc brings with it an energy of the forgotten. I don't know if anybody else feels like this, but I always feel like Imbolc is encouraging us to cherish what's been forgotten. Marie Antoinette once said, "There is nothing new except what has been forgotten." And I'm pretty sure she was probably talking about couture, to be honest. But you can apply it to anything in life, you know. We talk about the great circle and the great cycle of life, and how everything is recycled and everything is everything else, and you know, energy just manifests itself in different ways and then moves on to something else. So if you think about it, nothing really is new except what's been forgotten. And if we dig deep and we think about the things we've forgotten, maybe the energies that once used to fuel us, or the ideas that used to inspire us a lot, which have now kind of fallen by the wayside, we maybe think about the places we used to go that used to make us feel nourished and empowered, the things we used to do that gave us structure, maybe even the ritual practices that we put on the back burner a while ago. Maybe think about replenishing your practice with things that aren't new, but things that once meant something to you, you know, and once gave you that structure and once gave you that core foundation. I think that reclaiming what's been forgotten and the power of memory during Imbolc is a very exceptional thought to have about this time, which is kind of all about the movement from one realm into another. We're so much invested in celebrating the new that I think it can kind of become addictive to the detriment of what's gone before, and the idea that memory is a very powerful tool and that we can be reminded of what inspires us, particularly if we're stuck for inspiration. Or I know a few of you might be watching this feeling a bit alienated or weird because you're not getting that surge of inspiration, and you're thinking, well, what's wrong with me? You know, this is kind of a festival that has a lot to do with kind of the new and being fresh and being creative, like starting something that's going to manifest itself in the tangible realm kind of thing, and why don't I feel that? But I think, you know, there is a lot to be said for relishing what's been forgotten, honouring what's been forgotten as well, and bringing it forward. And I think, you know, if you're stuck for inspiration, a lot of life coaches, holistic life coaches, say that if you have lost your inspiration, or you've lost your spark, you've lost your passions and drives, go back to what used to inspire you. Think about the last memory you had of a spark of inspiration. Were you in a museum looking at some dinosaur bones? You know, were you out on a boat enjoying the feeling of the water underneath you? What was going on? Were you potato painting with a kid? What was happening when you first got that last spark of inspiration, that spark of drive? And go back to that, go back to it and recreate it. You know, reclaim what's been forgotten for your own, because it's still yours, and there's still time to dress it up in the clothes of who you are now and enjoy it as, you know, a great spiritual accessory, a great kind of like addition to your toolkit, if you like. Okay, so that's all for now, and thank you for listening if you did. Blessed be.